All right. Thank you, everyone, for being patient with me. This is my first podcast in a long time. I am just coming back from the break we had from the political season. A lot's happened since then, and just been really busy lately. So I haven't really been able to get on. But there's some stuff that I wanted to talk about that's currently happening here in Washington State and locally here in Island County to kind of make sure that people are aware of it, some of the big news. So the first thing I'll say is it's great to be back. I'm hoping to be able to do some more podcasts and get some more guests on pretty soon to cover local news. And yeah, so I'll jump right into it. So the first thing I will say is a little public service announcement to people here in Island County, particularly to businesses and people who may be looking for a job. I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to name any businesses um, because this has been reported by more than one person, but I have not personally confirmed it. So I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus and make myself liable. So I'll just make a general statement. If you are currently looking for a job, let us say as a barista, I'll use that as an example, and you go for an interview and the people in charge of there decide they want you to work for them as a volunteer, say no. You need to get paid for your time. I've heard that there is a problem with a business, and as of right now, I won't name any names. But if we continue to hear some problems, I will, um, because that is a real problem. If you are asked to work for someone, you need to get paid for the time that you're working. You don't work for free. There are no volunteer hours as a barista. I mean, unless you really like the people and you're just there to help them out. Um, so if you are a company that is bringing people in and then telling them, "Hey, we just want to see how you work," now all the hours you're working are volunteer hours. Stop it. Stop it now. That will end very badly for you. Um, so no names were mentioned, and it'll stay that way if we don't hear any more about it. But people, protect yourselves. You have a right to be paid for your work. You have a right to be acknowledged for your work, and you should not be made to feel compelled to work for free for anyone. That's not how this works. That's not how we treat people here in Island County. So we'll just leave it at that for now. More to follow, perhaps. Um, Moving on, let's talk about the statewide Republican Party, the WSRP. Well, they're broke. And when I say broke, I mean dead broke. I mean, they have more debt than they have dollars in the bank. My good friend and a very, very knowledgeable political consultant who I look up to greatly, and actually is a large reason of why I'm able to do this because of some of the knowledge that he's imparted on me. He even made this logo for me for Parabellum. Christopher Gergen, the author of Win, had made a comment that's currently, I'll show it to you. Just as he predicted, the Washington GOP is insolvent. They have $495 in one account and minus $77,000 in the other. Had the National Republican Party not given $40,000 to the federal account, the Washington GOP would not have made payroll. Bad news for the Washington GOP. The National Republican Party isn't going to be donating anymore. You know, that was a one-time gift. And I wonder if the National Republican Party knew that it wasn't to help us out, to give us a kickstart. It was to get us out of debt that was created. You know, I mean, and I got to say it. We just reelected Chairman Jim Walsh again, a guy I like, and I think he's a good representative. I think he would be a good House leader if Republicans were ever to take over the House, which won't happen. But we'll, maybe in 10 years, 15 years, 20, down the road. I think he's a good representative. I think he represents his people well. There is a difference between a good orator and a good legislator and somebody that is a good administrator. Jim Walsh has not proven to be a great administrator. And the proof is, I mean, the Republican Party, for the first time in my memory, is broke. less than $0, less than zero. That is ridiculous. And very soon they're not even going to be able to make payroll. So they're probably going to have to give up on their office unless they find a donor who's willing to bankroll the paychecks and keep the office, which they may have. But what effect can that party have on any elections at all? In addition to that, and I'll add to this, another problem that I am concerned about with the WSRP is not only do they have no money, they also don't even have control over their own analytics. That is to say, they don't have control over the numbers of doors that were knocked on, people that were called, how many voters were communicated with, because they just gave that off to a businessman. So there is a businessman who is in control of all the analytics, which means the Republican Party cannot independently verify their own success. The way you measure success for anyone who's done even minuscule administrative work, and this is to help you Republicans, the way you measure success, not only, I mean, is it victories, which you don't have, but if you're trying to get closer to winning, you need to be able to look at, okay, how many voters did we contact? How many votes did we get? How many dollars per vote did that cost? How is our outreach going? How many doors did we knock on? All this needs to be looked at. And then you need to look at the past and see we're getting better or we're getting worse. And then you can kind of make a determination on, okay, well, we probably lost because we didn't knock on this many doors in this county. Democrats do that very well. Democrats are on point about that. They're very good. Republicans don't even have control of their own analytics. And for any chairman that would allow that to happen, to not demand to know those numbers and have their own numbers, I'm sorry, you are not going to find success ever. Even if we gave you all the money in the world, you would lose. And Republicans have lost every single statewide race. They lost a seat in the Senate. They lost a seat in the House. Democrats are incredibly close to a supermajority. And to my Democrat friends out there who think that might be good, it probably won't. Supermajorities aren't good for anyone. History has shown, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat supermajority, often it goes badly. You need an opposing party to check you. And right now, the Republican Party isn't it. We don't have an opposition party in the state because they can't get their act together. Additionally, and Democrats have taken a step right now in the House to give themselves the ability to end all debate with a simple majority vote, which means they can end debate on any topic without allowing a single Republican to talk, which basically means they've given themselves supermajority status. And you know what, Republicans? You deserve it. I mean, you continue to lose doing the same stuff over and over and over again, and then you recycle it, hoping that people will understand it better next time. And there are a lot of issues on which you can win. There's a ton of issues. Safety and security, taxes. We usually win on those. When taxes go up to a vote of the people, we almost always win. But you don't want to focus on those issues. You want to focus on inner fighting between moderates and hard right and who's Republican enough. Republicans are even literally shedding moderates on purpose, not by accident. By design, they are saying, well, this person's not a pure Republican, so I don't want him as a member of the party. Done. Those people are leaving. Now you have even less people than you had before. And guess what? Those moderates you kicked out, generally, they're the ones with the money. So until Republicans figure out how to get along with each other and understand that they're not going to get everything that they want in the state, this is not a pro-Trump state. It isn't. And it's okay to support Donald Trump and love Donald Trump. I mean, all that's totally fine. But just understand, he ain't winning in this state. So pushing people out who don't necessarily align with him on every single issue is not gonna help you. I, I am 100% confident that none of the Republicans in the party right now are going to listen to a word I just said. I think they're going to figure out and lose some more, and they're going to do it without any money. And I will be personally shocked if the Washington State Republican Party is still functional by the time we have our midterm election. And there's a lot of elections that you need to win. We got every single House race up again. A good chunk of the Senate races are up again. If history is any indicator, Republicans will lose some more seats. So that kind of covers the Republican Party. But how could Republicans come back? Well, one, you need an administrator in your administrative office, which is your chairman. Not somebody who goes around and clears out the office where nobody's working and pays more than is allowed by the Washington State Republican Party to a buddy of yours just so he can go around and give great speeches about how great our ideas are. That'll never be enacted because you're going to keep losing. We need somebody who's an administrator that sits in that office that is making the phone calls to gain financial support. That's the main job of the chairman. And to also reestablish some level of trust that the party has a freaking prayer and that it's being run correctly. They need a boss that's going to bring analytics back. Like, we are in control of our own analytics. We are not going to pass this off to a businessman. And I'm not saying anything negative about that businessman, and I'm not saying that businessman shouldn't have control over his analytics that he paid for. I'm saying the Republican Party should have their own, and they don't. That is a problem. So get an administrator in that administrative office. It does not have to be an orator. It can be anybody. Just get somebody who knows some administrative business skills. Start rebranding, because the brand you're working on and the brand you're using has failed for 40 some odd years straight. Time to freshen up. Time to put something else forward for the people of Washington State, because what you're selling, they're not buying. And any reasonable person who's ever done any kind of business, and people may say, well, politics isn't a business. It is. It really is. You are selling your ideas, and the currency is votes. That's what it is. It is very sales oriented. And if you don't have even basic business principles at the core of your own party, you will lose 99% of the time. The only way you don't lose is if the Democrats somehow hand you a victory, which I don't see happening. However, they could if people like this continue to say things like this. Washington Senate Majority Leader Jamie Peterson says kids over 13 have the complete right to make their own decisions about their medical health care. Parents don't have the right to notice. They don't have the right to consent about that. Okay, as a parent, I will tell you I find that extremely worrisome. And I completely disagree with you. And I will go ahead and check you and say, you're not doing anything to my children without my knowledge. And if you do, you're going to be very unhappy with the result. Saying stuff like that to parents is just ridiculous. So Democrats, if you want to keep this thing rolling, try and maybe keep your majority leader in check, because that is the kind of thing that might accidentally hand a win to the Republicans, even though they didn't earn it. So that is something frightening that's going on. And then we'll talk a little bit about the national vice chair of the Democratic Party. And I'm not just picking on Democrats here, don't worry, or Republicans. I'm going after everybody. But the new vice chair of the Democratic Party nationally, David Hogg, he says something, remind me how many AR-15s did Jesus own? And then an interesting reply, not enough to not be murdered by his own government. That was pretty witty. But when we're making arguments, even if it's an argument against people owning guns, let's keep them in reality and let's use historical context, at least starting when the first gun was made. So things like that could potentially help Republicans out. So if people are wondering how on earth is the Republican Party still even a thing, you do sometimes hand them easy stuff. So and you're lucky Republicans that they do, because right now you're playing checkers when the Democrats are playing 3D chess, and it doesn't look like you're ready to stop. So I'll move on from that. Now let's focus on more exciting news here locally, and I know there are a lot of people. I'll just say, and I'm going to do this as impartially as I can because I know both the people involved. I've spoken to them on this podcast. I've worked with them. But I'm gonna try and approach this as impartially as I can, so that way I can make my point so that it sticks. Because I don't want this to be too much about politics, because this isn't so much political as it is a problem that we have, and it's a problem with two elected officials from both parties. So one Republican and one Democrat. Well, one Republican and one independent. So I guess the Democrats are off scot-free on this one. But let's start with what happened. So as you guys know, many who watch this podcast know, but if you don't, let me catch you up. Sheila Kreider, during the last election, made a mask mandate. And she did it under WAC 434-261-020, covering observers. The county auditor shall provide written rules for observers. The county auditor may require an observer who does not follow the established rules to leave the counting center. Well, Ms. Kreider took that to mean, and I'm not entirely sure she's wrong, so I mean, this is something that needs to be debated, but she took that to mean she can make up any freaking rule she wants. As long as she puts it in writing, it is now gospel. And if a person who is there legally doing their job of monitoring the elections just to make sure there's nothing to worry about, and there wasn't, by the way. I've spoken to many election observers numerous times for many elections, and there's never been any concern here in Island County that anything nefarious was going on. In that regard, Kreider has run a very, very good, tight ship. The people who work in the office, both Republicans and Democrats, have done a phenomenal job. And we saw that with absolute proof when Kelly Mock was elected as our assessor. He won by 12 votes. And when they did a hound recount of every single vote in Island County, which was in the tens of thousands, they were only off by one vote. So they do a good job there. So I don't want this to be about concern over that. However, what Sheila Kreider did was she decided to make a mask mandate. And the reason that this is odd is because no other elected official in our county did that for their office, nor did anyone else in Washington state that I'm aware of. There was certainly no order from the governor, which would have given her that kind of a reason to do it that was, supported. Governor Jay Inslee, and Jay Inslee was the governor at the time, did not put down any such order. Our local medical professionals did not recommend that it was necessary, but she decided to put down a mask mandate. She put it in writing. And then, of course, that ticked off the Republican observers. And most Republicans in Island County that I know of, and many Democrats, hated masks. Now, many people wore them, including myself, most of the time. Could just get through the day. But many people believed it was a constitutional infringement. I know there's many people who think, oh, come on, it's just a mask. But it's debatable, right? I mean, we can get into an argument about it. But when a low level politician like an auditor makes that arbitrary rule and she is the only one who made it, it's a little weirder than if it comes from a governor, because our nation has declared that we have a pandemic. When it's just one person in one office, in one room, where this mandate is upheld, it's a little weird. It's a little different. But anyway, so a mandate was made. Sheila Kreider did, in fact, put up the written rules. In fact, this is exactly what she showed. She showed this exact thing. And they were visible. And two observers, Republican Tim Hazlow, and who was the former chair and current state committee man of the Island County Republican Party, and the former vice chair of the Island County Republican Party, Tracy Abel, they weren't having it. They were there as they were supposed to be based off their position. They signed in. They were allowed to be there. And then they went into the room without masks on. Now, the first person to do it was Tracy Abel. And Kreider got wind that this was going to happen. And so she had the police on standby. From my understanding, the police were already there waiting for Tracy. And so Tracy goes in, and then the police immediately go in and they say, hey, we're going to ask you to leave because you haven't followed the auditor's rule. Tracy got up and left. Okay. Sounds like it's over. Well, then Tim Hazlow goes in and does the exact same thing. And it was a little different with Tim because he said, I mean, unless he's going to get cited, he's going to sit there and he's going to watch it when they asked him to leave. And then he insisted that they cite him for something. And I believe that was because he believed somebody gave him bad advice. Because he believed that if he got that citation, he could then use that to do a legal challenge for the auditor's office. He didn't need one. And what he basically asked for was to be charged. Well, the police did offer him the citation, and he left. And the citation was for disorderly conduct, which is a misdemeanor. And then that was the end of that. That was it. So that's all that happened. They went in there without a mask. They were told to leave. One of them left immediately. The other one asked for a citation. He got it, and then he left. But they all went in there after they signed in. They were allowed to be there. They just needed to wear a mask. Well, long story short, our prosecutor, Greg Banks, then charged them both with misdemeanors and then upgraded Tim Hazlow's to a felony and has also threatened Tracy Abel with a felony. And I don't know if the charges for a felony have gotten out to Tracy Abel yet, but the threat was made. And Greg Banks basically made a threat to both of them, and it was a threat. Eventually they may reveal the email, but the email, from my understanding of everyone that I spoke to, it was a threat. It was just, if you do not plead guilty and accept the punishment I have deemed you should have, I will drop the misdemeanor charges and charge you with a felony. Well, the felony that they're going for is, and I've read it, the felony that they're being charged with is the felony that you would use for somebody who broke into the auditor's office, like broke in, and then just started knocking ballots over and disrupting the election process with the intent of stopping the count or damaging the equipment or harassing people from being able, basically creating a disruption that could endanger the integrity of our election. That's a felony. And it should be. But that's what that felony is meant for. They're being charged with that simply because they didn't agree to Prosecutor Greg Banks's misdemeanor. I think that is fundamentally wrong. To charge someone with a felony because they want their day in court, and Tracy Abel especially, deserves to be heard out because I don't think she committed a crime at all. Now, Tim Hazlow requested a citation, but I know he didn't commit a felony. I don't know if disorderly conduct is appropriate, but I know a felony most certainly isn't. So they deserved a day in court, and because they thought they should have their day in court and didn't want to plead to a crime, they're now being charged with a felony crime. And it seems really political. The problem with Greg Banks is his statements in the past have made it abundantly clear that he hates Donald Trump and he hates his supporters. He has made statements in the past that are deeply concerning. Some of those statements, I don't have them available here, but they have been shown on other shows, other podcasts, have referred to all Trump supporters as cicadas, as Klansmen, even going so far as to say that the Republicans' diseased thinking must be cleansed from our society. And now, even if there's Democrats who may agree with the statement, for a prosecutor, an elected prosecutor, to say something like that on social media is pretty shocking. There's a reason he ended his social media account. And the internet exists and all that stuff's still out there. This looks like him prosecuting two Republicans to the fullest extent he possibly can, in the hopes of just hurting Republicans because he hates Republicans. That's what it looks like. Whether it's true or not, that is the perception he has created. And the fact that that what they're being charged with makes no freaking sense. I mean, it doesn't. Makes it look even worse. And now you may say, well, everybody in that room was required to wear a mask, and the people who didn't are being charged. Okay. Well, that argument is now dead because Como News went in after the incident and then just took a look inside the counting room, and you can see this gentleman right here counting ballots, and he is not wearing a mask. I'm not going to name him, but he is a ballot counter. He's not wearing a mask. And Kreider or somebody from the auditor's office suggested, oh, well, he was taking a drink. Okay. Couple of problems with that lie. And I'm going to go ahead and call it a lie. It is a straight up lie. Couple of problems with that lie is we don't see a drink anywhere around him. He's got both hands on a piece of paper. So he's not taking a drink and then putting his mask back on. And we all went through COVID. What did you do when you took a drink? You lifted your mask down, or you took one ear off and then it would be dangling on the other ear. And then you'd put it back up. There is no mask. There is no mask. Now, I spoke to a friend of mine, and she is a friend of Kreider, and she would probably say anything she could to defend Kreider. And she said, well, if you look further, which isn't in this photo, there's a blue drink behind him. I don't know if that's true, but even if it is true, it's nowhere near him. And there's no mask anywhere near him. So that man is not facing charges. Nor should he. I'm not suggesting he should. And I didn't name him for a reason. I did not clear up the image to keep it blurry on purpose. This isn't about him. He hasn't done anything wrong. The guy was a good guy who was just counting and didn't do anything wrong. But the fact that he's not facing charges tells me that we're not charging the people who didn't wear masks. We're charging two very specific people who didn't wear masks because they're Republicans, Mr. Banks. And Kreider is going along with it because she didn't like her authority being questioned. And she's had some problems with Tim Hazlow and Tracy Abel in the past. In her Republican stuff. So we've got a problem with Sheila Kreider, who arbitrarily made some rule that we knew was going to lead to this, and now it has resulted in two ridiculous felonies being charged against two people who did not commit felonies. A waste of our taxpayer dollars. And it makes people who are conservative no longer believe in our legal system. And these kind of things make all the Republicans who are saying stuff like lawfare is happening sound. This is what that is. This is lawfare. It really puts into question our prosecutors, who generally do a good job. I'm not anti-prosecutor. I support our prosecutors. I support our police. The police that offered Tim the citation conducted themselves very professionally. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. The problem is with the two elected officials, and I'm going to say it. Kreider, you created this problem. You created a problem that did not need to happen. And then you made it worse by going along with these prosecutions because your feelings got hurt, because people didn't want to follow your exact rules that you don't even enforce on your own people. You let Como News see this. They went in to see it, and you were totally fine with this guy not wearing a mask. So you weren't enforcing that rule on everyone. You just decided to help prosecute two other Republicans. Well, Ms. Kreider, I've been thinking about it a lot, and honestly, I think this should be your last term. I really do. I think this should be your last term. So please don't run for re-election, because I don't think I can get behind you. I don't think I could support you again. This is so beyond the pale stupid. I just can't get behind it. You've done a good job in the past, and I'm sorry that we are where we are, but this is just unacceptable. This was completely avoidable. This was completely unnecessary. And you make it sound like it was such an important rule to protect your people. Well, look at your own people. I mean, come on. Ridiculous. So that's what I have to say about Kreider. Now, Kreider could potentially win me over again. I'm just mad right now. But this is bad. Now, Greg Banks is now charging two people with a felony who did not commit a felony. And I'm telling you right now, they did not commit a felony. And no matter what you may feel about these two people, because they are very, very divisive people. You know, if you're a Republican, you probably like them. If you're not, you probably don't. But I would make the same argument if we had a Republican prosecutor who was charging Democrats who clearly didn't do anything wrong. We can't do this. This can't be the new normal. We cannot start arresting our political opponents because we don't agree with them or we think they're annoying. If we started arresting people based off them being annoying, I'd be facing multiple life terms. And that wouldn't really be fair. I don't think I deserve life terms. We need to do better as a county. So Greg Banks, I honestly think this should be your last term too, because you are absolutely taking this way beyond what it needs to be. You also, one of your, I don't know what you call the lawyers beneath you, but one of the deputy prosecutors, I don't know if that's their title, but I'll just call it a deputy prosecutor, straight up lied. When Mr. Haslow was being charged with the misdemeanor, the judge was about to drop it. He didn't see a crime there, and the judge was about to drop the whole case based off lack of probable cause. And then your deputy prosecutor, don't know who it is yet, but I will name that person when I find out, just lied and said, oh, well, he threatened people there. And knowing full well, because you guys know the law, Tim Haslow doesn't, you guys are able to make any claim that you want, and they aren't able to hear Tim Haslow's side. So based off that lie that you told them, because he didn't threaten anyone, you got probable cause to go forward. And then I think part of the reason that you upgraded the charge was because you didn't really like what the judge was saying, because he didn't see a crime. So you decided to drop the charge in that court and charge him in a different court where you think the judge might be more favorable to you. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I think Greg Banks and Sheila Kreider have served long enough. Thank you for your service. I think it's time to go. So please don't run for re-election. Anyway, that's the updates that we have right now locally. Now, with that said, by the way, with all of this said, I highly recommend, and I understand why they did it. They were making a stand for their beliefs. I highly recommend you don't make political stands for your beliefs in government buildings for your own protection. It doesn't end well. Do it outside the building. Hold a sign. Protest outside. Don't interfere. I'm not saying they didn't interfere, but make sure you can't be perceived to be interfering with any kind of government thing, or it can end badly. Like it's resulting with Tim and Tracy. Had they asked me, I'd advise them not to do it. So I would advise all of you, if government does something you don't like, don't protest it inside a government building. Do it outside the building. And make sure you're not getting in the way of any government employee doing their daily duties. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of mistakes were made here. And we've got 2 elected officials that I am very, very disappointed in. From both sides of the aisle. So that just goes to show you Republicans and Democrats can both let you down. And that's basically the updates we have right now. Definitely interested in your guys' feedback. And let me know if you think I'm wrong, which I know a lot of you probably will. So thank you. And I'll be trying to be doing a Facebook Live with some guests very shortly here. Thank you.